The only place to start, really, is at Manchester United, isn't it? Two players making the news. We're going to... Certainly not ones we were expecting as well. Dharmesh, just tell us what's going on. What's the latest there, shall we say?
These have emerged in the last 24 to 48 hours, and they have come
as quite a surprise. Manchester United, first of all, have a broad agreement in principle. That's the phrasing I've been told. A broad agreement in principle for the signing of the Juventus midfielder Adrien Rabiot, the French international. Now, the finer details of this deal have still to be finalised, and personal terms still need to be sorted as well. United, you'll remember, we've been speaking about this throughout the window. They've continued to work on all of their midfield options and potential options while trying to work on a deal for Frenkie De Jong from Barcelona. But that one, as we know, has been a complex one to do, a difficult one to do, a complicated one to do, and it remains the case. That's not to say that United have given up on signing Frenkie De Jong. They still want to sign the Barcelona midfielder. But the Barcelona president has been reiterating he's happy, we want to keep him, he's not for sale. But on the other hand, has continued to say that there are economic issues, and those economic issues have not as yet gone away. We do know that has been a priority position, central midfield, throughout this summer transfer window. And what hasn't been ruled out is Adrien Rabiot and De Jong both coming to Old Trafford.
Okay.
I don't know how likely that's going to be, but it can't be ruled out at this stage because they're still going for Frenkie De Jong and they are getting closer to bringing Adrien Rabiot. The other player that was a surprise as well is they've made a bid for Bologna striker Marko Arnautović, the former West Ham and Stoke City striker. That's been rejected. We think it was around £7.6 million. But Erik ten Hag is a big fan of his, and they're expected to go in with an improved offer. It's thought that he is seen as a player whose profile is not currently at the club. So they believe Arnautović will bring them strength, depth and quality along the forward line. And it's believed that at 33, he's a player that's for the here and now. So he will come in and he'll be immediately part of that squad as a short-term target and as a short-term option, 33 years old, whereas they still do have longer-term targets in the forward line.
My question is, does Frenkie De Jong want to go to Manchester United? Because obviously we've got Chelsea sniffing around there as well. So what's going to happen with this? I mean, is he a player sort of saying, yes, this is where I want to go? I mean, does anyone know the answer to that question?
Not entirely, because it depends who you're listening to.
Yeah.
He has said he's happy at Barcelona.
Yeah.
We haven't heard him say he does not want to go to Manchester United.
Right.
We're still of the understanding that he'd be open to a move to United, and Manchester United are hoping that that is still the case and hoping that his relationship with Erik ten Hag will bear fruit. And he will decide, once I've sorted out these economic issues or not with Barcelona, I'll make a move
Chelsea
to
sort
United.
Them out more than
Chelsea,
exactly.
I think as far as De Jong is concerned, his first choice is to stay at Barcelona.
Right.
Any footballer, you're not going to leave the Nou Camp Champions League football to go and play for Manchester United, especially the Manchester United that we saw yesterday. I think he is willing to do that because of his relationship with Erik ten Hag. And if United didn't think that there was a possibility that he would come and he could be persuaded or convinced to come to United, I don't think they would have got involved in this whole chase throughout the summer. But I think his first priority, if he could sort out his financial issues with Barcelona, and we're talking about, what is it, 17 million pounds. If that can be sorted out, then I think he will stay at Barcelona. And the good news for Manchester United is he was playing yesterday afternoon, so he didn't watch that performance against Brighton.
But if you were watching that performance as Frenkie De Jong, you might just think, this is actually, I can help here, because actually it was the midfield that everyone talked about. So, you know, you might actually think, actually, that's a challenge that I quite like right now. It's, you know, arguably, I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate a bit, but Manchester United are arguably still, as we always say, one of the biggest clubs in the world, aren't they?
They are one of the biggest clubs in the world, but they're not in the Champions League, and they're in a terrible state at the moment. Barcelona have got their own problems as well, but I would say Manchester United's problems are much worse, and Manchester United don't have the luxury of having an election every 4 years for a new president, and somebody new comes in and tries to sort out the issues. I just think De Jong, if things can be sorted out, he will stay at Barcelona, and I would be surprised if Manchester United signed Rabiot and De Jong, even though that is a possibility. Another player, of course, who United have been linked with heavily throughout the last couple of weeks, Darmesh has been reporting on this nearly every day, is Benjamin Sesko, the Red Bull Salzburg forward. Now, people are saying this kid is going to be the next Erling Haaland. He's only 19 years old. Manchester United had held talks about signing him, but they have missed out on him. He is going to RB Leipzig in a £20 million deal, and he's actually going to stay at Salzburg this season, and he's moving to Leipzig next summer. Now, I don't think it was a particularly difficult deal to do, because obviously Salzburg and Leipzig have the same owners, the Red Bull Group. But it looks like Sesko is kind of taking the same path that Erling Haaland did, which is sort of stepping stone moves, you know, to go from Salzburg to Leipzig, and then maybe to another club, and then bigger and bigger clubs as you go along. I think he would have been told that for his career development, it wasn't the right move for him to go to Manchester United at the moment, at this stage of his career.
Yeah, I mentioned the longer-term targets. That was one of Manchester United's longer-term targets, up until we heard this news that Leipzig were sorting out this deal for next summer and then keeping him on loan at Salzburg for this season. The dialogue between United and Salzburg was still open. There was still a big gap in valuations, but United were very, very interested in him. So you got the case of Arnautović being the short-term fix almost, and then you've got another player that they wanted to bring in, like Sesko, who they could mould into the United way, whatever the United way is at the moment, but play under Erik ten Hag, and maybe bring him in now and, you know, sparingly put him in and out of the squad, and then get him used to what Manchester United are all about. There's also the long-term interest in Antony as well from Ajax, but that one seems to have gone quiet. I mean, he's been playing for Ajax in recent weeks, and also the valuation was never met by Manchester United. There was always a big gap in valuation, even though they retained that interest. I think for anything to happen with Antony, which seems quite unlikely now, it would have to be a couple of things. United would have to boost their offer, and Antony would have to really, really agitate Ajax for that move and a transfer request potentially. So not great for United just now.
No, they seem to be missing out left, right and centre, it would seem. And OK, well, let's go back to what Dan said at the top. Rabiot, Arnautović. Is this the solution for Manchester United? If you're a Manchester United fan watching the transfer show right now, tonight, what would you be thinking?
Well, you wouldn't be very happy. You know, they are not the kind of players that a club of the stature of Manchester United should be signing. None of their rivals would be interested in signing these players, none of their historic rivals. You can't see Rabiot or Arnautović being of interest to Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp or even Antonio Conte or Mikel Arteta or Thomas Tuchel. Having said that, they are good players. You know, Arnautović, okay, he's getting on a bit. He's a controversial character, but he scored 13, 14 goals in Serie A last season. He scored more goals than Marcus Rashford. He scored more goals than Anthony Martial. He scored more goals than Jadon Sancho. You know, he would have been straight into the starting 11 yesterday against Brighton. I'm sure he would have improved that side. Rabiot is a little bit different. We always read about him during every single transfer window. He had issues at PSG. I think Juventus supporters will be very, very happy to see the back of him. Juventus sorting out quite a few issues in their midfield. They want to get rid of Arthur. They want to get rid of Rabiot. Aaron Ramsey is gone as well. They want to bring in Leandro Paredes from PSG. I think he would be a better signing for Manchester United. But Manchester United, you have to say, are in dire straits, and they need to make some signings, and they need to sign players who are available. And these are the kind of players they're going for at the moment. But long term, if you're a United fan, you're thinking, this is just not good enough.
You mentioned there the fact that Juventus fans might be quite glad to see the back of Rabiot. Is that because of his performances on the pitch, or is that you're saying
just his performances on the
Right,
pitch?
okay.
I don't think they've been
not dressing
convinced
room,
by him.
okay.
They don't think he's what they need. And speaking to a few Juventus fans today, they are very, very pleased that he could be on his way to Manchester United. No disrespect to him, that's not my personal opinion.
No.
I haven't watched him play.
Yeah.
You know, he's a very good player. He's played for France, I think something like 25 times.
Yeah.
He could turn out to be a great signing, but I'm just making the point that Liverpool are not interested, City are not interested, Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs are not interested in him.
Juve would be quite pleased with this deal as well in another way financially, because he's entered the final year of his contract, and if they didn't want him there and they thought, right, he's not part of our future, so if there's no clubs that are interested in him, we're going to have to terminate his contract, so they might have to pay him off. So effectively they would have lost money by releasing him a year early from his contract. But Manchester United have popped up and they'll pay a transfer fee which will be probably more than what Juventus would have had to have paid Rabiot to free him up from his contract.
If you look at it from Juventus' point of view as well, for the second time they've signed Paul Pogba on a free transfer from Manchester United, and on top of getting Pogba for nothing, looks like they're also going to be able to sell a player that they don't want, Rabiot, for I don't know how many millions of pounds to United.
Goodness me.